Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this afternoon's live stream. We've got a packed show today, plenty to get through. Latest on Raheem Sterling, Raphinha, alternative targets, Nathan Ake, Ligt, Ronaldo, Lewandowski. Lots to get through. Chelsea are obviously in the US on their preseason tour at the moment. No games until next Monday, so there's still time for new signings to get out, get a few training sessions under their belts before we get into the swing of things. Apologies if my voice is a bit hoarse or croaky. It's been a large weekend. So yeah, but we're back to it. George, let's get going, mate. Raphinha, obviously, fee was agreed a couple of weeks back now with Barcelona. We kind of knew it was going to be a long shot. His preference has always been Barcelona. Brazilians, they want to do South Americans. They want to play for those Spanish clubs. And it doesn't matter how big a football club you are. It's not about a lack of pull. For Latin American players, those clubs will always be more appealing. I'll just bring it up now. The fee has been agreed. Where is it here? Let me just get Ben Jacobs confirming that obviously Leeds and Barca have finally reached an agreement this evening for Raphinha. Understanding is 50 million plus 10 million fee is incorrect. And the deal is actually worth close to 75 million. Raphinha, that Barca always confident of getting Raphinha, but it's not true. The deal has been in place for weeks. They also look to re-sign Dembele. That's fine. Mate, so Raphinha is going to go to Barcelona. It's confirmed. What are your thoughts, mate? Are you disappointed we've missed out now that it's kind of done? I know it was a bit of a saga that was dragging out. I mean, he's a sort of player, 25 years of age, that he's not really worth sort of all this hype around him. But from a Chelsea perspective, George, are you disappointed?
Yeah, well, firstly, good to be back on the show. I've missed it after a weekend. Raphinha, it's a difficult one, isn't it? We said on the show last time we were on about how his preference would be Barcelona, and then those types of clubs have always got that attraction to them. The two very famous clubs. Chelsea will never have that pull over perhaps Madrid, Barca, and possibly Manchester United as well. So it's a tough one. He would have been a really good suit for us personally, I believe. But I think, first of all, the asking price is getting a bit steep now. And, if his preference is to go to Barcelona or whatever, I think you've got to look at the player's ambition and drive and where it stems from. And if he's not solely 100% committed to joining Chelsea, then it's probably not the right move, regardless of how good he is. I would agree with that. At the end of the day, we knew we had to act fast with it. That bid came in, it was accepted. Personal terms broadly agreed, but at the end of the day, as you said, we knew the player's preference was always to be Barcelona, and that's the way it goes. I mean, I'm not quite sure how Barcelona are paying for this. I don't know what they're doing. They're using Klarna, pay in 3 interest-free installments. I'm not sure if they're doing that. They've selected that at the checkout. I don't really know what's going on with them, but I mean, how they finance their deals, I'm not sure how it's happening. It looks like Ousmane Dembele is also going to re-sign a 2-year deal, taking a 40% pay cut. So again, Barca pulling money out their arse. I don't know where they're getting it from. But they're auctioning everything. You do weddings at the new camp now as well. I mean, they're desperate. They are desperate. I don't know how they're doing it, but they'll always get away with it, and they'll still somehow probably end up signing Robert Lewandowski as well to go with it. So yeah, Raphinha, obviously we've missed out. It's disappointing, but we move on. There are other targets potentially. I mean, it's always been the case that Chelsea have wanted to bring in 2 attacking players, but I mean, George, there's not that many other options out there when you look at it. Obviously, Raheem Sterling, we've talked about him before. We won't go into it too much detail, but he did complete the first part of his medical in London the other day. He will join up with the squad in the States this week, I believe. Just waiting for the official announcements from the clubs, and that signing will be done. We've spoken about that at length, so we probably won't go into that again now. But, I mean, alternatives, George, there's not many out there. Again, Serge Gnabry is an interesting one that's been brought up. I mean, he's got 1 year left on his contract at Bayern Munich. It's not, by all accounts, he's not going to sign the offer that's currently on the table from them to extend. I mean, would he be one? I mean, he's a good player. Obviously at Arsenal, we didn't know he was going to end up being this good. He had that infamous loan spell at West Brom, went to Bayern Munich, and he's kind of rebuilt himself into a top winger. And he's definitely one that Chelsea are interested in. Let me just bring it up on the screen now. Simon Phillips, who's been very reliable with a lot of stuff recently with Chelsea, saying that one of his best sources has
once again reiterated that Serge Gnabry as a real option for Chelsea this window after mentioning him to me weeks ago. Chelsea have recently met with the Bayern director when he was in England. Now, of course, there's a long way to go from meeting with the director to actually having all the details tied up and Gnabry in a Chelsea shirt. But I mean, George, is this one that would excite you and perhaps an option that we should be looking at now that Raphinha has gone and Dembele is almost certain to re-sign?
Yeah, he's a good player. I remember him playing that game against Spurs a few years back when he absolutely battered them. I think he got a brace or at least a hat-trick that evening. I like him. I think he's a talented individual, very physical player. Certainly more developed now since his Arsenal days. It does bode the question that it looks as if Thomas Tuchel's therefore happy with a number 9 or so-called false 9 of Kai Havertz, because I still don't hear any noise about strikers coming in. Gnabry perhaps being a replacement option for Raphinha that fell through, and Sterling on the other side. Again, I said I wouldn't really be that happy if we didn't go for an out-and-out centre forward. And again, with this interest rising, and he's not a striker, it does ponder the question as to whether Tuchel is just going for the width in numbers rather than going for a number 9.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be honest. There's not that many out-and-out number 9s out there anymore. Obviously, you've got Erling Haaland, who's just gone to City. Harry Kane, obviously, he's not going to leave Tottenham now. You've obviously got Robin Lewandowski as well, but his preference is to join Barcelona. There's not that many out there, out-and-out 9s. And a lot of teams now are kind of, I suppose, moving away from playing with a traditional number 9 or going with more fluid players that are comfortable across the whole of the front line. And perhaps that's what Chelsea may well be looking at. But I mean, Gnabry's an interesting one. I don't know how much money he'd cost. Obviously, Bayern can't command a huge fee for him because he's in the last 12 months of his contract. Wages would be high as well, but he's a good player, and I think he'd be good for Chelsea. But again, he's another one of those players that's like a touchline winger. I mean, if this were to materialise, you often think that perhaps would this mean a change in formation to a 4-3-3? Because the wide players we're being linked with aren't like the current ones we've got. They're very much kind of what you'd more describe as actual wingers rather than inside forwards.
Yeah, and I think so. And I'm expecting a change in formation for next season. I think it was drying out the current formation. I think he'll mix it up. And with these out and out wingers, I really do feel that we do need a change in formation, and 4-3-3 would suit us really well with the types of players that we're being linked with. Is he better than what we've already got? Probably, just on pedigree alone. I think he probably is, but I think it is a bit of a downgrade from Raphinha for me personally. But like you said, they're very limited options, and you've got to think sensibly as well about players in the last year of their contracts. Can we grab them for a lower price? So yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah,
no, I'm definitely happy with it. I mean, I don't really know what other options there are, really. Obviously, the Cristiano Ronaldo stuff doesn't go away. I'll come onto that in a sec. But yeah, with Gnabry, I definitely wouldn't be against it. Let's just get to a few things in the chat. Cody Gakpo, Podence, Neto, Gnabry, for me, one of them would be perfect. Yep. I mean, I don't know much about Gakpo. I know he's been good at PSV, but again, the Eredivisie is I don't want to be disrespectful, but it's a far, it's a far lesser league. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. Gakpo, maybe. I do like Podence and Neto at Wolves again. That'll command a lot of money. I can't see either of those happening. Gnabry, for me, is one that is probably most possible. But yeah, I mean, obviously Lee Taylor in the chat saying good player, but he prefers Sane. Yeah, I mean, Sane, again, very good player as well. Arguably got more Premier League experience than Gnabry does. I mean, but I think it's going to be a lot easier to get Gnabry out of Bayern than it would be to get Leroy Sane out of there. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of other options out there. I mean, George, before we get on to Ronaldo, mate, would you be happy with heading into next season with just Sterling being added to that front line and going with the existing options we've already got? Do you think Thomas Tuchel could actually get a better tune out of those attackers than he did last season?
Well, you can only hope so, can't you? I mean, all of them are still fairly young up there. They've all got tremendous talent and promise if utilised in the right way. I still think we haven't found the best formation to suit some of those players. So I think there is room for growth there, particularly with players like Kai Havertz, Pulisic, if he can stay fit. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Callum Hudson-Odoi. We don't know what's going to happen with Hakim Ziyech. But I've always said, and I'm going to stick to my guns, that I think just bringing in Sterling isn't enough. With the lack of goals that we got last season, that really hindered us going, particularly, and even if you look at the 2 cup games, just needed someone to put the ball in the net. And I think in order to close the gap, we need someone who's scoring double digits or at least assisting. And we both agree on that. And we haven't had that at Chelsea for a long time. So I think to be sure that we've got exactly full strength, we need 2.
Yeah, I would agree that we need 2. It's the problem is it's just the options that are out there, really. I mean, I'm just going to bring something up now on the screen about Robert Lewandowski. Obviously, a phenomenal player. Like, there's no denying his goal scoring record. Obviously, he spent basically his whole career in the Bundesliga, broken all sorts of records. But Thomas Tuchel and Chelsea would jump at the chance to sign Robert Lewandowski should Barcelona not be able to pull off a deal. But Chelsea would appear otherwise focused on another versatile forward. Any Lewandowski deal understood to sit separately from other recruitment plans. I mean, Lewandowski, understandably, is unlikely. Barcelona is the preference. But if that were to break down, we would be keen to make a move. George, you've seen it before with Chelsea and that centre-forward curse. Lewandowski has got a phenomenal track record. Would this be something that you'd get behind, even at that age, 33, 34? Do you think he could do it in the Premier League?
No, I don't like this one, mate. I've got to be honest.
No,
look, listen. A phenomenal player. But I think Chelsea again, going down the route of like he's past his best. He's slower now. The pace and the intensity of the Premier League is a completely different animal to what he's used to. Yes, he still does it in Champions League against all the big sides. Don't get me wrong, but we've seen it before, and I just think Chelsea need to go down a different route of rather than just buying a name who's done it, been there and done it at his age. I know that contradicts me slightly with the Ronaldo, but Ronaldo is a separate issue altogether because of how good he is. I mean, he's the GOAT essentially. So no, for me, I think Lewandowski would be a mistake, mate. I just don't see it working at all.
It's a difficult one. It's so hard to tell because, as you say, the record is phenomenal. You can't knock his career, what he's done, what he's achieved in the game. Robbed of a Ballon d'Or when they decided to cancel it because of COVID. He's a great football player. But again, one thing for me as being Chelsea fans is just like you always worry slightly when a top centre forward is linked with your club because we've seen it over the years, over the last 20 years, that we've had some phenomenal players come through the door: Fernando Torres, Shevchenko, etc. Guys that have achieved phenomenal things in the game, but they come to Chelsea and it just doesn't work. We've had it with Morata, we've had it with Lukaku, Shevchenko, Torres. There's a lot of them. And whilst Lewandowski is phenomenal, there's just part of me that always worries. Would he score the goals at Chelsea? Does the way we play suit his style of football? Would we create enough opportunities for him? He's a fox in the box guy, but I think at his age, I'm not saying he's not got the quality, but would he instantly adapt to the Premier League at that age? I mean, only very few players do that. You see, Zlatan came in his late 30s to Man United, did well. I'm sure Lewandowski could do the same, but it's a tough gig playing number 9 for Chelsea. Very few players have done it well, and really only Drogba and Costa in the last 20 years have actually had any sort of success there. So whilst I would very much like Lewandowski to come, it's one of those where you're just thinking, is it sort of heart ruling head when you think about it? Because the reality of the situation is, I just don't know if he'd get enough goals. But I mean, again, it's a long way off happening. I mean, but George, out of say Lewandowski and Ronaldo, if you had a choice of bringing one in, what would you go for?
Ronaldo. Just because I don't think you can ignore it. Like we said, for the marketability factor, for the fact that he's also done it in the Premier League last season, so he'll be ready to go. The fact that just a lift around the place. Yes, you could argue that he causes exactly the same problems as why he wants to leave United. You can't leave him off. You can't really leave him out. You can't really substitute him. It's very difficult. Probably doesn't suit our style of play, but I think for that player and that price, I really don't think you can ignore a play. Like you said, it's kind of the Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar situation. I think if you're labelled with those players, you just can't say no. I don't think Lewandowski's quite in that bracket.
No, maybe not. But I think this is all kind of hypotheticals. I think we're fully aware that this is
he's not coming, is he?
No, he probably isn't coming. But it's definitely one to look at. But I mean, other than that, George, I wouldn't say it was worrying, but there's no point just bringing players in for the sake of it. We've added Raheem Sterling, which is a fantastic signing. Obviously, unfortunately, Raphinha has chosen Barcelona. We kind of knew that anyway. Dembele is going to re-sign as well, it looks like. That's just the way it goes. But then you're looking at it, Cristiano Ronaldo, we've talked about. Again, Ben Jacobs saying that a Chelsea move isn't likely despite a meeting between Bowley and Mendes. Tuchel does not think it makes football sense to sign Ronaldo, and Raheem Sterling's arrival isn't likely to change his mind. It is true Ronaldo is of some appeal to the owners. It's clear what he could do for the brand, but Tuchel has been given final say, which makes Ronaldo to Chelsea highly unlikely. And United's not for sale stance is even more genuine if the buyer is a Premier League rival. I mean, you can't really argue with any of that. I think Ronaldo is going to be another one that watch this space, because if Ronaldo wants to leave, he normally gets what he wants. United won't want him there; he's unhappy. But yeah, I think the chances of him joining Chelsea are still pretty slim as well. In regards to that, if Roman was in charge, I would say that Ronaldo come in would be quite likely, because it's the sort of thing that he would very much pursue. He was always one for kind of a statement signing or a big name, but I kind of think we're perhaps transitioning away from that a little bit, and something that we've championed a lot on the channel is kind of moving away from big names and going for smarter, more sustainable business. Which brings me on to a point, George, before we get into any other incomings, is something about the that's not that one, and it's not that one either, about how the club's been run in recent weeks, because we are wasting a lot of money. It's basically saying that Chelsea are wasting about £500,000 a week on the wages of Kepa, Ross Barkley, Emerson, Drinkwater. It's costing them about £500,000 per week. I mean, when you hear that, I mean, there's a lot for these new owners to sort out. I mean, that's some chronic mismanagement, isn't it? Offering that quality of player those ridiculous wages, and it is setting us back because we can't afford to, shift these players on now because of the ridiculous wages. I mean, what's your reaction to that news?
Well, they say it now all across the major channels, don't they? That it's sometimes harder to get rid of a player than it is to bring a player in. For those reasons, you tie them down along contracts at the time. You're excited and you'll do anything you do to get it over the line. But I don't think really people ever think of the negatives in hindsight and thinking that the move's not going to work. You all back the player at the time. You all think it's going to work out. I mean, Danny Drinkwater's a classic example. Came at a time where he won the Premier League with Leicester. Thought he was going to really fit in well. Complemented someone like Kante, who was already at the squad really, really well. And couldn't get a game, but was tied down to a massive contract. I don't know what his wages were, but probably up of 60,000 a week, easy. For a player who's played a handful of games for Chelsea across the last 4 or 5 years, so it's difficult. I mean, you can look at it as wasting money, yes, but at the end of the day, that's just where football's gone at the moment. Even Premier League players sitting on the bench at these top clubs are on easily 40 grand a week, and that's just the going rate these days. Unfortunately, I think that's why there has to be some action taken in place about wage caps in the future to sustain them. But yeah, it is hard. It's a difficult situation.
It is, but I just think, from a Chelsea perspective, we need to move away of just offering players ridiculous wages just to make them sign when they're not good enough. I haven't got a problem with offering proven players big money. Raheem Sterling coming in on 300k a week. When you've got Timo Werner on 275k a week, you can't argue with Raheem Sterling earning more than him. You can't. But I just think, if a player doesn't want to...
Wasn't Danny Drinkwater a proven player, though, when he came in?
What, about 100k a week, though? I mean, it's for
Premier League winner, though.
Yeah, but one good season. I know you kind of you cash in and stuff, etc. But I think you've got to look at the bigger picture and just not rush in and offer large wages, because we've seen it time and time again. There are so many players that we cannot get rid of. And all we do is send them out on loan year after year after year until their contracts expire. and we just end up wasting millions and millions of pounds on so many players. So that is something that I think does need to be sorted out. It won't happen overnight, and obviously the new owners will need to kind of get a grip on that. I do agree with this, getting in a director of football and sorting out the scouting and, you know, integrating loanees will make a big difference in that regard. But I mean, George, moving on to defensive reinforcements then. Again, nothing happening too much yet. I mean, I think personal terms with Nathan Ake have kind of been agreed, just waiting to sort out a fee between Chelsea and Manchester City. I spoke about this on the stream on Friday. It's going to be about 45 million pounds, the final fee. He's 27 years of age. He's versatile. I mean, I won't spend too much time on it. I just want to get your thoughts on it. Ake, versatile, good player. I think people, from what I'm seeing, people are not that pleased with it, just based on the fact that, one, we're giving best part of 100 million pounds to Manchester City for 2 players. I don't think that's that big an issue. And I think it's just the fact that we're basically buying someone that we got rid of and then turned down the chance to re-sign when we had the opportunity. But I mean, I actually don't mind it as long as 1 or 2 more established centre-backs actually come in. I don't think it's a bad deal.
I don't mind it. I mean, I think it's difficult because people look at it as a sideways step because, as you said, we got rid of him, decided he wasn't good enough going forward, and now we're buying him back for, you know, a large amount of money, which doesn't, you know, never really makes sense when you go back to old players, really, does it? And it's not one of them that's going to excite you or you feel like that's upgrading our defence as such. If you'd ask me, is he better than Christensen or Rudiger? No, it's probably the answer. But we're running out of time, mate. I mean, we've been on this YouTube channel throughout the whole summer since it's been open and still nothing really been done. And I think it gets to the point where we're running out of options and running out of time, and we've got to make some sort of decisions. We can't be waiting for Ligt, you know, for ages, hoping that he signs, because if he doesn't and we bring in no reinforcements, we're in serious trouble going into the season. So that it does make a lot of sense for other reasons, you know, fitting into the Cobham training ground, players that know him. So I haven't got an issue with that, and I like him as a player. So for me, it's an okay move.
Yeah, I'm not dead against it, on the proviso that we do get in a couple more, perhaps better players. No disrespect to him, but I mean, yeah, is he better than Rudiger and Christensen? Probably not. But is he better than what we've currently got left at the club at the moment? Then most certainly. But again, it brings me on to Matthijs de Ligt now, George. Again, this is kind of moving on. Bayern Munich sporting director Hassan Salihamidzic has been in Turin this afternoon speaking with Juventus officials. I think personal terms broadly agreed on a deal for de Ligt with Bayern, but obviously no official bids have gone in yet. It remains to be seen whether Bayern Munich would meet the asking price that that Juventus are wanting. I mean, George, it's looking like that de Ligt could again be another one that potentially gets away from Chelsea. No official bids have gone in yet from either club. I mean, what do you make of this situation here? Fabrizio saying we will see when Salihamidzic says on de Ligt deal when asked on the negotiations with Juventus. Juve are waiting for opening official proposal. There's been no official proposal from Chelsea, no official proposal from Bayern, just meetings, which are kind of fairly standard. I mean, how do you see this going? I would be very disappointed if we missed out on de Ligt. I'm not sure if Bayern can financially match what we could offer, but again, they could spread the payment in a different way over a longer period of time, whereas we probably pay more up front. But yeah, I mean, where do you stand on this, mate? At the moment, it almost feels like it might be slightly slipping away from us. I mean, there was that talk of the Timo Werner swap deal. Then maybe they prefer Pulisic, potentially Jorginho also being involved. But it very much now seems that that's kind of moved away from that sort of swap deal, and it's heading more towards a straight cash offer. Where do you stand on this, mate? Because I would be pretty gutted to miss out on him.
Yeah, I want him in the club, but I think it's inevitable he's going to join Bayern Munich. I've just got a feeling about it. We both said it on the channel a week or so back that he would be a really good fit there. It's just another one that's going to slip past our fingers. I feel. Obviously, Bayern will be looking at the sale of Lewandowski and probably using that as leverage to see how much they can front up for him. But yeah, it's a disappointing one because we've done a lot of groundwork on a lot of these players, and we just seem to get hijacked at the last minute. And this is another one where I feel Chelsea just are going to lose out, unfortunately.
I mean, mate, do you? I know, like Chelsea is a massive football club, but at the end of the day, like particularly with European players as well, like the likes of your Bayern Munich's, your Barcelona's, your Real Madrid's, etc., even over like massive clubs like Manchester United, players will always prefer to go to those teams. I mean, you not kind of like, are you concerned about kind of Chelsea's perhaps lack of pull in the transfer market, or do you just think it's one of those things that over the course of history in football, certain clubs have just always been more appealing, and that's kind of just the way it is for certain players?
I mean, yeah, Manchester United not better than us and haven't been for the last decade, but they've always got better pulling power than Chelsea. I mean, it's a fact. I mean, people want to play for Manchester United, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, those sorts of teams. It does come around in cycles. I mean, there was a time Chelsea in the Premier League with Mourinho, we could pretty much attract the very best. We were number one, but because we're not even number one in England anymore, it's difficult. I think we have to probably encourage players a little bit more and give them slightly more, whether it's more wages or something to sweeten the deal, because we can't guarantee that we're going to be able to close the gap against the top two in our own league. And I think Bayern Munich, you're pretty much guaranteed success in some capacity. And it's probably the same for the likes of Barcelona's, Real Madrid's. I mean, you're going to win something in your career if you join those teams. Not necessarily at the moment guaranteed if you're a Chelsea player. So, yeah, difficult one, but it does swing around and roundabouts.
Yeah, no, it certainly does. Let me just get to a couple of things in the chat. No one has shown interest in Kepa. No, to be honest, I actually don't think there's been an awful lot of interest in Kepa. There's been a few reports about Lazio potentially because of the Sarri links, but other than that, no, there's not been anything concrete in regards to Kepa whatsoever. So far, some things on the Tuchel, Lukaku, and Saul. Yeah, Sterling will be added to that one, but yeah, it's not great so far. But he is being back this summer. We just got to be patient. I know it's frustrating. We both get frustrated with it. A lot of Chelsea fans do, but I think if we are patient, players are coming. It does just take time, which is frustrating, but it will happen. Sterling, yes, Sterling. Well, I mean, I don't know the exact details. I haven't got any contacts with anyone at the club or anything like that. But all according to all reports out there, that should be announced at some point this week. Medical's done, so just the formal announcements left to be made. I suppose the interview of the club channel, etc., all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it should be this week. So yeah, watch this space. But that is a done deal. It is a done deal. Let's have a look. Nathan Ake. What's this one? Nathan Ake better than Christensen? I don't know. I don't think there's an awful lot in it. I probably prefer Christensen, but I do agree that Ake can be just as good, or maybe a bit better potentially. I know he's a couple of years older, but yeah, I don't think there's an awful lot in it. He's definitely nowhere near significantly worse. That's for sure. But in terms of other defenders, George, we still need to bring in probably 2 or 3 centre backs. Ake not done yet. Dick's obviously just spoken about. Jules Koundé is obviously still on the list again. Doesn't really seem to be any further movements on that one at all either. Let me just bring this up. There's Arkansas in the Standard reporting on here that Jules Koundé and Dayot Upamecano are just 2 of the options being considered should Chelsea not land de Ligt. Later on in the window, could also see a wing-back arrive. Koundé, we've spoken about a lot as well. I'm not really quite sure why nothing's really materialised there, why no official bid's gone in. We're obviously keen on the player. Not really sure what's going on there. There's not really any updates on that either, so I won't spend too long on that. But George, Upamecano, you could only imagine that those Upamecano links are probably coming because if Bayern sign the Ligt, then they're probably going to be getting rid of a defender. And Upamecano is one of their centre-backs. Very good at Leipzig. He joined Bayern along with Nagelsmann, and he's not really done that well at Bayern. I mean, I don't know an awful lot about him. He's young. He's a French international. He's a great physical specimen. Very good football player. But again, one of those that I don't know how well he'd do. But I mean, what do you think of those potential options that could be considered in Upamecano? Because you do kind of worry that if they're bringing in de Ligt and they're like happy for Upamecano to go, is that a worrying sign? I'm not too sure. I mean, what would your thoughts be on a potential move for Upamecano?
Open, because I think we have to be, but
yes,
it's again, like the Raphinha situation, it's not our first choice, but I understand we need to have contingencies, and like you said, the likelihood if Ligt going to Bayern's looking pretty strong now, so therefore they're probably going to have a one in, one out policy, and we've got to be looking at snatching up that potential. Again, it probably comes down to what Thomas Tuchel wants from the back. He's probably got players in mind. Whether Upamecano is one of those, I don't know. Again, not. I think we've got to be careful because it's not. When we said about back in an earlier video of not being kind of taking the Jurgen Klopp situation of not just going it for doing its sake. I understand we're very, very light in the defensive area, but we shouldn't just be signing players just to fill in gaps. I think we need to be looking about longevity, particularly with Thiago Silva not getting any younger. So an option, yes, but I still think it's a bit of a downgrade from what we had at the club. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to accept that in Rudiger, certainly we have one of the best centre-backs in the world on current form, and it's going to be very difficult to bring someone in of the same quality or better without spending a lot of money. And I think that's just the way it is. And yes, Koundé, Upamecano, De Ligt, these are all good players. But again, I know these things take time, and I've spoken to people that have got a better idea than me. And I know there's a lot of ins and outs of transfer business, transfer deals. They all take a long time. But yeah, it does get frustrating, particularly 3.5 weeks until the season begins. All right, Sterling's in the door. Not official yet, but Sterling is in the door. But there's a lot more business to do. You think we need at least 2 centre-backs, maybe 3. We need probably at least 1 wing-back, well, definitely right-hand side, maybe left-hand side as well. We perhaps need a midfield player, maybe another forward player. We're still looking at 5 or 6 players that need to come in the 3.5 weeks before the season actually starts. There's a lot of work still to be done. We also need to replace Silva in a year. Yeah, that's also true. I'm sure that'll be part of the thinking there as well. Wesley Fofana is another one that I'm a massive fan of. He's young. I think he's 21 years of age, coming back from a really bad ACL injury. Very good. He's done very well at Leicester. We were interested in him before. Fofana, yes, we look at him. Only issue is he did very recently sign a new 5-year deal. So he would be very, very expensive, at least probably 85 million pounds. I mean, but he's been on the list before. It could be revisited. I'd be very, very surprised if we went for him this summer, maybe next summer. But George, you're a fan of Wesley Fofana. I think he's a phenomenal player. I mean, he would definitely improve that Chelsea backline. But I think this summer is definitely far too soon for a move.
Yeah, I mean, he's just, like you said, mate, he's just signed out that big contract. So I don't think there's going to be any movement on that whatsoever. So as much as I admire the player and he would be a good fit, I agree with the comment there. But I think it's almost untouchable.
Yeah, I would think so. I would not expect Fofana to come in for at least another year or 2 minimum. Marquinhos, again, it's one we've looked at before, but that's just not going to happen. He's in talks to sign a new contract at PSG. And again, he would just be so expensive. I mean, on PSG, Kimpembe is the one that we'd potentially get from there. If PSG can bring in Milan Skriniar, I think they'd be open to selling Kimpembe. Again, Tuchel is a fan of his. And we could also potentially see a wing-back arriving in the summer as well. But George, how desperate is it now that, realistically, we do get a bit of a shift on in the market? I know, new owners come in and you've got to forge relationships. There's a lot of work to do. There's no director of football in place yet. Bowley's shouldering a lot of this responsibility himself. But it's not panic stations by any means, but there's a lot of work to do. And with the season closing in fast, we're already on pre-season tour, as I stated, we need to get a bit of a move on, don't we?
Yeah, it's really not ideal, particularly when you look at the front runners in City and they got their business done very early and have bought 2 very high-profile players right from the off. But the others behind them have struggled. Liverpool, yes, they got Diaz to replace Mane when he came in at Christmas, but really they've struggled there to push on. Not much from United because people don't know where they stand. So I think the competition around us is struggling for transfers as well. So it's not all panic stations. I think Chelsea's a bit of a unique situation because of things being delayed because of the change of ownership, which has had a huge impact in the processing of things so far. And we're in a huge transition period with a lot of players on the books that simply we need to get rid of. So I think pre-season is a good opportunity for Tuchel to have a good look and get a fine tooth comb out and have a look at really what he wants to kick off the season. But mate, when you put it there, when you said 3 and a bit weeks to go until our first game, it's daunting at the fact that we've only just got Sterling. We've got no back cover whatsoever. It's almost alarming, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. I mean, just on the players that we've actually already got. I mean, how important is it the pre-season for the likes of your Broziers, your Gallaghers, Colwell, Gilmore potentially as well, Ampadu there. I mean, there's an opportunity not for all. Well, there's an opportunity for all of these players, but there are options here that if we don't want to go into the market, there are potentially players that we've already got on our books that could be good enough. I mean, for these lads, this pre-season is so important. I mean, for me, out of that list of players there, I know Colwell's very well regarded, but having played no Premier League football, I'd expect him to go on loan to a Premier League club to further help his development. But Conor Gallagher is probably the one you look at in midfield and you think, yeah, there's a real opportunity here for him to kind of stake a place within the squad and get some decent minutes under his belt next season. I mean, how excited are you at the prospect of Gallagher potentially? This could be a big breakthrough from him pre-season. But yeah, for all these lads, it's important, isn't it? And it's also important for the club because it could provide, us not needing to go into the market necessarily if we've got players that can prove they can do the business already on the books.
And this is the thing, like Chelsea, with all the negatives that come with not signing players, I think we've got a lot of positives with. I still do honestly believe, deluded or not, I do believe we still have one of the best squads in the Premier League. I really do. I still think our squad's stronger than Liverpool's. I really do. Yes, they've got a better first 11. But we've also got a lot of big players who just aren't in form.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Lost you there for a sec. What were you saying about big players not in form? I think you've muted yourself. If you go out and come back in, I think I'll just pick on what George was saying. That we do have players on the books that can do very well for us. It's a big opportunity for them pre-season. Tuchel, as the manager, is giving them due diligence and giving them an opportunity to prove themselves, to see what they can do with an option to being involved in the squad. But one thing that I see a lot is like people saying, oh, Chelsea is so quick to sell academy players. But that thing is also twofold, If these academy players are good enough, they'll play. We've seen that. They will play. If you're good enough, you will play. But on the flip side, it's also the case that certain players, in the case of Tino Livramento as well, that, they want assurances. They want to go and play regular football. And at a club like Chelsea, you've got to be very, very good to play regular football. And we can offer them, a certain amount of minutes and whatnot. But at the end of the day, for their careers, if they want to move on, then so be it. They want to play regular football. That's their prerogative. So, I do believe that the club does everything they can to keep these players. But ultimately, if those players want to move on, then that's their choice and it's their career choice. It's not Chelsea disregarding the academy or anything like that. But I do think out of those players, for sure, Conor Gallagher has got a big opportunity. I've spoken about this at length, though. I do feel he'd be much better in a 4-3-3 system if we were to switch to that. But, at the end of the day, in a pivot, could he play there? Yes, I wouldn't say he was a pivot player, but I'm sure he could potentially do a bit of work there. But it will certainly be interesting to see what happens with the academy lads as well, because, again, in midfield, we've definitely got options there. Again, Declan Rice talk doesn't go away, but I don't know what's going to happen there. I think it's going to be very difficult to get that one done, and it will move right up to the last days of the window. I think Frenkie de Jong at Barcelona, another one we've been linked with. I think that's very much kind of tactics just to get Man United to get a bit of a move on in that situation. Gvardiol's gone quiet. Yeah, I don't. Gvardiol's going to cost a phenomenal amount of money. I think he's actually more on Manchester City's radar now. They're obviously still looking at Marc Carrera as well. Gvardiol could be an option to come in and replace Nathan Ake, which is also part of the reason why there's been a bit of a hold up in the Ake deal, is that City are looking for a replacement there as well. But I mean, midfield guys in the chat. I mean, there's like over almost 40 of us in here now, guys. Thank you for all watching, tuning in, getting involved in the chat. Really appreciate it. As always, please do smash a like on this stream as well if you haven't done already. And if you're new to the channel and you're tuning in, please do click that subscribe button. What will be deemed as a success this season? For me, I think as long as we do better than last season in terms of, I think we have to get a domestic cup under the belts. Obviously losing both finals last year was massively disappointing. We've not won a domestic cup since 2018 FA Cup under Antonio Conte. I think we've lost our last 5 or 6 Wembley finals in a row. So that's something that needs to be addressed. But for me, a top 3 finish, getting closer to Liverpool and City, and a decent Champions League run and winning one of the domestic cups would be a success this season. I think we've got to take baby steps and kind of move forward in that regard. But yeah, guys, I mean, in the chat, let me know what you think is a successful season. Again, that's what I think would be a successful season. But again, I'm sure other fans will have different expectations. But I think we just got to, keep our expectations kind of slightly measured. But don't get me wrong, if we're top at Christmas again, then yeah, we'll all be going mad and thinking, yeah, all right, the title's going to come. At Christmas, if we're top, we are going to believe the title's definitely possible. You always believe. But yeah, I think close the gap, get a domestic trophy on the board, and just have a bit more consistency and perhaps a definite improvement in the home form as well. Robert, big up. Chelsea need to raid Leicester squad. There are some ballers: Ndidi, Barnes, Maddison, Samare. Samare, yeah, I don't know an awful lot about him. I think Maddison's a great player, but again, I don't know where he fits in at Chelsea. He won't really play a number 10 position. He could play as an 8, but again, he'd be a lot of money. I don't think he's someone that's really on Chelsea's radar. I'm a big fan of Harvey Barnes. I also like him, and I do like Jared Bowen at West Ham a lot as well, but I can't really see that happening there. Ndidi, again, is a very good player. Again, slightly gone under the radar, really. At least closing the gap within 5 points. I mean, that's going to be a big ask considering we finished over 20 points off the pace. I don't think City and Liverpool will get as many points as they did this season. The last season just gone. I don't think they'll get as many points this season, but so there's a chance for us to close the gap, but we're going to have to be a lot more consistent. Let's have a look here. Totally agree. Since Chelsea haven't got a creative midfielder, then why not look at James Maddison from Leicester? Yeah, I get the point. I mean, again, I know it's not the profile we potentially go for, and perhaps might not fit the system very well, but Christian Eriksen on a free transfer. Again, I'm surprised we perhaps didn't look at that. He's very creative, but then as I've said before, that number 10 position doesn't really exist in the Chelsea formation at current. And I do still think that with the kind of targets we're looking at, particularly at the back, I still think we are geared towards the 3 at the back for next season. We could see the 4 at the back deployed a bit more, but yeah, I just think the 3 at the back is probably going to be the one we tend to stick with a bit more. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd love to see a 4, but that would very much rely on us signing a holding midfield player. And other than Rice, we haven't really been linked with anyone. I just wanted to bring this up on the screen now about Robert Lewandowski. I just want to go quickly back to it. Where is it? Let's bring it up. Let's have a quick look here. Miguel Delaney reporting that Thomas Tuchel doesn't see a number 9 as his priority, but he's prepared to act if Lewandowski becomes available. Tuchel sees Lewandowski as more mobile and more in his prime than Ronaldo. Barcelona stalling on him because they want £40 million up front. So that's an interesting development there, potentially. I do agree with Tuchel in a sense that I don't think a number 9 is a priority. I just think we need players that can consistently contribute with goals across the front line rather than being very reliant on a single individual. I think Raheem Sterling coming in, he'll add goals. And I think it will take some of the pressure off Mason Mount, because very much last year, we were looking for Mount to deliver every game. And if he didn't, there wasn't really much happening in the way of the forward line. But yeah, I mean, yes, I agree with all those comments. Lewandowski's more mobile. Yes, he's younger. He's more in his prime. Yes. And I think if £40 million for a 33, 34-year-old Lewandowski, I think that would be a very good deal. I still think out of Lewandowski and Ronaldo, both are very unlikely to happen, but Lewandowski would be more likely to happen of the two. But again, it remains to see what Barcelona can do on that one. Oh, here he is back in the mix. Yeah.
Sorry, mate. Yeah, it's just...
No, it's all good, mate. It's all good. I'm just saying that some new quotes that have come out, just saying that Tuchel doesn't see a number 9 as his priority, but he's prepared to act if Lewandowski becomes available. Tuchel sees Lewandowski as more mobile and more in his prime than Ronaldo. Barca are stalling on him because Bayern want 40 million up front. So just kind of what we were saying a little bit earlier on, mate. I'm just going to quickly wrap up with a couple of bits in the chat. We seriously need to address the issue of these players that go on loan. Players like Barkley, Bakayoko, Kennedy. These players are wasting wages that plenty of great players could use, like Mendy. I mean, just on the wages thing, I know we touched on it before, mate, but I mean, the fact that, you know, Mendy's on half the wages that Kepa's on, things like that. Reece James, I don't want to sound disrespectful to say he's only on 60k a week, because that's a ridiculous amount of money. But like in footballing terms, in the hierarchy at Chelsea, that's quite a disrespectful contract for him. I'm sure he's probably still on the first contract he signed as a pro, probably, which would explain why. But these guys need to be offered more terms on that. But I mean, George, just on the loan thing itself, obviously new loan rules coming in, which should make a difference and potentially help us out. But do you think? I know that the loan program. We spoke to Eddie Newton, former assistant manager, I think last summer, saying that the loan program, he was quite prominent in that, and it has been very successful for Chelsea. But it probably does need looking at, doesn't it? Do you think we just loan out too many players, and actually in reality we just need to accept that, you know, we've made mistakes on certain players and just take whatever money we can get for them and just move them on, get the wages off the books? Because I'm seeing things like we're wanting 12 million for Marcos Alonso. We're not going to get that from Barcelona. I just think we need to take what we can get and just take the hits on this. I mean, do you think we need to perhaps approach that way of thinking now, rather than trying to hold out for what we think players are worth, when in reality we're just not going to get that money?
Yeah, I think there's a balancing act to be played there. I mean, in an ideal situation, of course you do. Of course you want to get your players off the books that don't want to be there. I mean, yeah, I'm sure all Chelsea fans have seen the recent interview with Danny Drinkwater. I mean, it was quite, you know, heartwarming, really, that, you know, despite all the money that he was getting, he wasn't happy. And he's wasted the best years of his career, you know, at a club where he thought he was going to, you know, it's sad. But the reality is it's very difficult to shift these players on. You've got to find suitable clubs. Obviously, it's a business, so people don't want to lose. You know, Chelsea don't need to sell players if they don't feel like they're getting the valuation for them. Whether, how ridiculous that may seem, you know, if we think that Alonso's worth £12 million, then that's the price. I mean, I agree that we've got to be realistic and accept that we're probably not going to get that sort of money for him at his age. But it's difficult, because also these players don't want to move to clubs and take a serious wage drop if they're already contracted with Chelsea. Some players would rather sit at Chelsea and be on, you know, double the amount of money but not play. And how do you manage those players? It is extremely difficult. We're lucky to have so many gifted players that are on loan that potentially could come back. And when I got the troubles with the stream there, I was talking about, you know, the likes of Gilmore and everyone else, who they're very, very good players, mate. Like, regardless, that, you know, they could be Premier League first team players for other clubs. I'd like to see how Brozier gets on, but it's a difficult balancing act.
Yeah, I would agree on that. It is a hard one to get right. It is all very easy just to sit here as fans and go, oh, why have we offered X deal and X money? Like, the reality is, it is a bit more difficult than that. But I do agree. We do need to massively move on from that, because, you know, your likes of your Barclays, Bakayoko's. Bakayoko is still at the club. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, it's not an ideal
situation. And like Batshuayi's still there. Batshuayi's back in pre-season. Like
Lovely.
Why? I mean, maybe that's the answer. Just give Mitchie the number 9 shirt and see what happens next year and go with him. I mean, yeah, you just look at it and it's just, yeah, it's shit. It really is shit. But I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of work to do. By the way, guys, over 60 of us in here at the moment, which is great. Really appreciate all the support. If you've not smashed the like button, please do. And if you haven't yet subscribed and you're new to the channel and you're tuning in now, please click that subscribe button. It does really help us out. I mean, George, just to round out, mate, how much are you kind of looking forward to this preseason tour of the States? We've got 3 or 4 games lined up. It's going to be interesting to see, you know, how the returning players from loan bed in, how Raheem Sterling gets on. I'm very much looking forward to seeing him in a Chelsea shirt, despite my less than complimentary comments on him in the past. I'm looking forward to see how the likes of Gallagher get on as well. I mean, George, you're looking forward to this tour, mate. It's going to be great to see Chelsea finally back in action, kicking a ball, because it seems like forever since that Watford game at the Bridge.
Oh, it's just great to have club football back, because we all miss it. Nothing that quite brings back the Premier League. Everyone gets excited. I have to say, I was a huge pre-season nerd, really. I used to get up really early, watch Chelsea TV, all the pre-season stuff, and I was just get overexcited. I remember when Kesman joined, he was bashing them in pre-season. I thought he's going to be unbelievable. But now I've taken a backseat and been like, look, someone can really light up pre-season, and it doesn't. You can get the best results in pre-season, you know, players up front scoring lots of goals, and all of a sudden it goes wrong quick, and the Premier League is a different animal. Yes, obviously we want to get results. Yes, obviously I think we all know the priority is just injury free, get through it. Everyone make sure they got enough minutes and trial a few things tactically. But I am looking forward to it as much as anyone. I'm buzzing for the first game of the season, and I hope we can both be there to see the Chelsea in action on the first day. But yeah, the States is going to be exciting, and it's just good to have Chelsea back playing again. It seems like forever, as you said.
Yeah, no, but I'm definitely looking forward to it as well. As we said, new players to see. Hopefully, a few more signings coming in that we might be able to see in action on that tour. What formation we're going to use? Will players be tried in different positions? There's all sorts of things that to be done in pre-season. I have to say, mate, having seen the new kit, I actually think it looks class. It actually looks a lot better when I've seen some of the development squad with it on. It actually does look very good. It's a lot better than what we had last year, and it's a definite improvement from recent years from Nike. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to it. There's reason to be positive for sure. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, we want players in. Yes, we need players in. But guys, we've just got to stay patient. Okay, I might revise that viewpoint if it gets to the start of the season and we're kind of in a similar situation. But as it stands, guys, we've got to be patient as fans. I know it's frustrating when you see other clubs doing business. We've got a lot of business to do, which makes it even more frustrating. But good things are coming to Chelsea. We will get players. Tuchel will get who he wants. It just takes a long time. We've got to be patient. But I'm very much looking forward to it. Preseason getting underway soon. But yeah, George, I think that seems like a good point to round out. Guys, over 70 of you in here now. Thank you so much for all your support on this stream. Thanks for getting involved in the chat. Really appreciate it. As always, on your way out, please do smash the like button and please do click that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out, helps us grow. We're looking to hit 1K subscribers by the start of the season. So if you could help us out, then please do click that subscribe button on your way out. And we'll be back in the next couple of days with some more transfer updates, some more updates from pre-season, and hopefully some news on maybe one or two more players signing or talks getting a little bit more advanced. But guys, until then, take care, up the Chelsea, and we'll catch you soon.